Hi, Reem.
Hi,
Nice to
Marjan.
have you here at last.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
No, it's my pleasure, actually. Okay, I haven't done this for a while, so it might be even strange for me. So we'll get into it. Yeah, we connected, I think, on Instagram, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and we've been following each other, and then I see all that you do about the marine and the environment and all that, and it's so exciting. So I said, you have to come in and tell us your story.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I'm very
So you
excited.
can start from, say, high school and then move forward from there. Okay?
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Can we do before high school? Because that's how it really
Oh my God, of
started.
course.
Amazing. What most people don't know about me is before I decided to be a marine biologist, I wanted to be an astronaut. And so since I was 6 years old, I was like, I'm just going to be an astronaut, and I'm going to make it happen. And I don't know how. And this was at Bahrain in the 90s.
Okay.
And I remember during those days, like most Bahraini kids, we play by the shores. And my mom used to take us to Babco Beach. And I used to always play in the sand, in the sea. And I loved it. And I used to think, I'm going to go to space and I'm going to be an astronaut.
But wait a minute. Now, you were playing on the seashore, in the sea, and you were saying, I'm going to go become an astronaut.
Yeah.
Why what was the connection there?
It was all blue. The sky was blue and the ocean was blue.
Okay.
And when you look at the horizon, it blends.
Okay.
So it's the same space for me as a child.
Ah, okay.
So for me, it was always up because that's what you're told all your life. You work hard to climb.
Okay.
You work hard to fly. It's all about going up.
Okay.
And so I thought, okay, up for me, for Reem was space, And at the time, there was this program, I remember في مركز العلوم, which is the science center at the time, and it was all about astronomy. And I was very excited, and I was so in love with it. And for some reason or another, they shut it down.
Okay.
And then I had no other opportunity to explore astronomy. And so that dream kind of slowly changed into, okay, things were getting not impossible, but there was no more connection to that knowledge.
And what stage in school were you now
At this point, I was around 12 years old.
Okay.
And that's also when I started going to the British Council to study English.
Okay.
And as part of language learning, there was a listening part, obviously, and we were asked to watch different movies, and then there would be questions.
Okay.
And so in my class, that a particular year when I was 14 years old, we were watching Free Willy.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And I remember, it's so funny because I actually don't remember the entire movie, but what I do remember is a phrase that changed my life. Because it was coming very close to when they were setting him free.
Yeah.
And there was a little boy and there was an adult woman.
Yes.
And he asked her, what are you going to do when we set him free? And she said, I'm going to do a PhD in marine biology. And I latched on to that word. And I was very interested to know what that was.
Okay.
And so I went to Mr. Tim, who was our teacher. I still remember his name, Mr. Tim White. And he said, he explained to me what marine biology was. He said, it's the, the science of the ocean. And I thought, oh my God. I love the ocean. And I always thought I could fly by going up. But what if I could go up through diving down?
Okay.
And that set off that journey, really, into marine biology.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Now, you got into high school. What were you studying in high school? Which section did you go into?
So I went into science.
Okay.
I went to public school and I graduated from Khawla Secondary School.
Okay.
And at the time, you had the option of going into commerce, literature, or science. And I chose science. And actually, there was a marine biology module during that time. And it was very exciting. I think I was the only girl in my class that was so excited about it. And everybody else was like, oh my goodness, what is the skeleton that we have to study? And it was so nice. And I remember I asked my teacher, I said, I really want to go into further studies. And she looked at me at the time and she said, I don't think you can do that. And I said, well, isn't there a
Why?
course at the universities? And she said, there is none. And believe it or not, until today, 2022, there is no degree in marine biology in Bahrain.
Oh, in Bahrain, you mean?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
okay.
And I just thought, okay, that's a bit bizarre. So what is it that I can do to access this education that I wanted? And so that set off like another journey of trying to find people who can really advise, who can point me in the right direction. And I remember calling different governmental offices, and there was one particular one that I called to ask. And he said to me, I don't understand. We don't have any girls on the boat. But you sound like a very smart girl. You should really go into medicine.
Oh.
And I thought,
no way.
But I'm really not interested in medicine. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate it, but it's not the passion that I'm driven by. And
Okay, let me stop you right there. Now, you're in high school and you're very passionate and interested about marine and marine ecosystem and all that. Now, were you diving at that that time, at that
No.
stage? Were you doing any sea activities?
no, and
But how would you know if you liked it, if you wanted to actually dive and go down?
I didn't even know I could dive at that point. I didn't even know marine biology included diving, and I didn't know that scientific underwater surveys were a thing. And don't forget, we're still talking about the end of the 90s, beginning
Yeah.
of 2000s in Bahrain.
Yeah.
This was something completely new.
Okay.
Like nobody knew anything about this field. Even myself, and at that time, there were no smartphones, there was no social media. It was only like if you were lucky, you'd go to the internet cafe to access Google.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so
Okay.
I was not exposed. This all came as a bonus to me.
Okay.
You know, so
Yeah.
I was all I knew is there was something in me that said, you need to go to the ocean.
Okay.
And you need to learn and work. It is your sense of duty, I felt. Like it was my sense of duty.
Okay.
So it was a natural calling, I would say. And
And you were looking around and trying to find out how to get into that area.
Exactly.
So who guided you then?
So I remember it was really interesting because initially it was really hard. And then I sent a very frustrated email to, at the time, the director of the Crown Prince Scholarship Program.
Oh, okay.
And I remember I said, I expressed my frustration because most of the people that go there and get the scholarships and what's always basically encouraged is always commerce, it's always business, it's always law. And I said, do you have anything for people that are interested in doing marine biology? And I remember, I believe her name was Miss Kathy. She called me up and she said, that was a very interesting email. And I've not read something like this in a really long time. And you know what? I'm not sure. I don't have the answer, but let's look for the answer. And after discussions and everything, she found a marine biologist, a British man who is a marine biologist here in Bahrain.
Bahrain, okay.
Yeah, he worked for Environment. Today it's called Environment Arabia.
Yeah.
It had another name previously, Posford Haskoning, Michael Aurora, and she got us connected. And in addition to that, she also managed to find the university exhibitions, the US ones and the UK ones. And at the time, they were at the Gulf Hotel.
Yeah. Okay.
So I went to those, and I remember going from one university to the other, asking if they taught marine biology. And finally, I did find some, but then they said to me, because I was graduating from a public school, I can't directly access these courses. So I needed to do either an access to science course, which is an equivalent of an A-level or O-level at the time.
Because it was a British system.
It was the British system, but
yeah.
in general, yes,
Yeah.
most countries who come from public schools cannot access
Oh,
that.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and that lasts until today, actually. So you have to do a foundations year to. So it's interesting because most people don't think of the challenges that different people have to go through to access education,
Yeah,
and it's something that I always work to highlight, because I think with the world we live in now, everything seems easy when people are successful, but people always forget about the journey to get to that success. Yes.
Yeah.
And that actually was a blessing in disguise for me, because when I did go for my Access to Science course, that's when I realized I had the liberty to go visit these universities and see what these courses might look like. And that's when I learned that not all courses are alike, because not all of the marine biology courses, wherever you go worldwide, will give you the opportunity to learn how to dive, to be trained to conduct underwater surveys and so forth.
So now, what is that program that you talked about? The
Access to Science.
Yeah. So what is that?
So it's a program open to anyone, any age, regardless of where they are in the world. You basically go on to that course. It's a 1-year course, and you basically study exactly the same thing you've done in your high school. So that's mathematics, biology, physics, chemistry. And it gives you a qualification that's equivalent to what I guess today is the IB, or the A levels or the O levels.
And you took it here in Bahrain?
No, you have to do it there.
Where?
In the UK.
Oh,
if you're
it's
going
in
to
the
a
UK.
UK system, yes.
I see. So it depends on what system you're getting into.
Yes.
Okay. Now, tell me all during this period, you're going through all of that. What is your family thinking about? How are they looking at all of this? Are they supporting you? Or are they like, be careful, this is not a field for girls, and the usual story?
Yeah. I think the only people that were supportive of my dream were my parents.
Okay.
So both my parents never went to university.
Okay.
So for them, the fact that I wanted to go to university was a dream.
Yeah.
And so for them, they didn't really focus too much on what that would lead to, because for them it was like, wow, she wants to study, she wants to do it.
Just going to the college was
so it was more like
them.
Go fly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's what I love about my parents. They were not like, because I know people whose parents have been to university, and if anything, that was a hindrance.
Yeah. Yes.
You need to be doing this. You need to be doing this.
That.
You know, and I was just like, actually, this is such a blessing. My parents were just like, God bless you, fly. And so that's what we did. So I went, and I remember I used to tell my mom, okay, I'm going on my first expedition as a research scientist to South Africa to do my bush training. Nobody understood what that was.
Yes, okay.
Even today, most people don't know what that is.
Okay. Now tell me, so before going there, how did you get into the college actually? So you finished that 1 year.
Yes,
course.
And then you apply. Like the way the UK system works, you apply through UCAS, and you have a choice of 3 universities. So I'd obviously gone to visit them, shortlisted them, and then decided I chose the University of Essex, mainly because there was a module as part of the course that would take students to Indonesia. You get trained to dive, you get trained to do underwater surveys, and then you're given your research project. And I thought, perfect, because in the end of the day, I wanted to come back to Bahrain and work in Bahrain. So being able to study different ecosystems, but the ecosystems that apply to my own country was key. Yeah, okay. And that is why I went for that. And I went through the normal application system. I interviewed for it. I secured my place. And that's when the journey started.
Lovely. So you went to UK and studied. And you knew that you were coming back to Bahrain. That's what you wanted to come and work here. What happened after you graduated?
So when I graduated, before I graduated, I wanted to make sure that I had the work experience needed to be able to actually start working in Bahrain, because I knew it was a new field, very unexplored, and the opportunities would be very slim. So in order to make sure that I had what I needed in terms of basic marine biology skills, I secured a position as a research assistant through an NGO.
Okay.
And I went to South Africa to do my bush training. And then with the same NGO, I ended up going back to Indonesia because I loved it so much during my course. And I worked as a research assistant there as well. And I did my own research project. After I finished that, and actually for that trip to Indonesia, I did get a bit of support because I needed some funding to pay for my flight to get there and stuff like that. from GPIC, so Dr. Abdurrahman Jawahari.
Yeah.
He is, I think, one of my biggest supporters. And for me, I always call him my godfather because he's the only person who believed in my dream before my success. Everyone else always shut the door when I went to approach them for funding or any support. And then...
Tell me this now. Are you talking about the bachelor's degree now, or this is past the bachelor's
Past
degree?
the bachelor's.
Okay,
So, I was trying to find opportunities to go work in tropical countries. So that entailed securing funding for flights, for accommodation.
Okay.
You know?
But where were you working at that stage? Were you working at in any organization, or you were just continuing your education?
I was doing my education, but at the same time, on the side, I used to do these expeditions. So it would be like an 8-week expedition to go out. So instead, everybody during the summer holidays would take a vacation, but I would go work.
Okay.
So that's what I did. And then I was intending on coming back to Bahrain after my bachelor's, but decided that I wanted to do a master's to explore the terrestrial side of things.
Okay.
So I secured a place at Imperial College London, and I did my master's in ecology, evolution, and conservation.
Okay.
And as part of the course, I had to do a 6-month research project. And I managed to get a placement to do this project in Madagascar.
Wow.
And I was very, very blessed, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, people say, oh, you're so lucky. I said, no, I'm blessed. There's a big difference.
You worked hard for
Alhamdulillah,
it. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Yani Allah rewarded me, and I felt like the universe had my back. And so I went to Madagascar. I worked with an NGO and with the local communities to map nesting sites of marine turtles along the northern coast of Madagascar.
Okay.
And that was a beautiful, very challenging expedition. I think it was one of the most impactful for me as a person. And also, it reminded me of how blessed we were in Bahrain, how blessed we are. And after that, I decided I felt like I had everything I needed to start. And I came back to Bahrain. And I must thank Halal Engineer, who is the owner of Environment Arabia. And she gave me my first job in Bahrain as their graduate marine scientist.
Okay.
Yeah, so I worked as a graduate marine scientist for Environment Arabia for a year and a half. And that was basically the start of my career here. Yeah. And as the years went by, I decided to explore different things and not just work on dredging and reclamation project, because a lot of my passion lies in, one, conservation and sustainability of ecosystems using nature-based solutions.
Okay.
And obviously what I specialized on later on as part of my PhD, which are coral reefs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's where we get to the coral reefs. So you started your PhD in 2016, right? Where did you, again in England?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and so, but where you had to do the research. I mean, part of the PhD is the research. Yeah. Okay,
and in England, it's the full,
it's the biggest part of it. Now, did you do it here? Yeah.
That was the key.
Yeah.
And because it's all about Bahrain for me, and because obviously for the bachelor's it was difficult. I can honestly say it was impossible during those days, you know. And then in the master's, again, it was very difficult because at that time, let's say the field was very strong, and I still didn't know many people that would be able to support me on the field, and I needed support. I came back to Bahrain. I worked for different entities like the Supreme Council for Environment, the United Nations Environment Program. So I worked for different entities and also on projects. So I realized that actually in Bahrain, no one's really studied coral reefs properly.
No,
we don't have an official coral species list.
True.
No one's done any genetic studies. And I thought, this is what I want to do, especially considering that scientifically, Bahrain is located in the hottest sea on the planet. So for the world, we are the window to the future of climate change.
Okay.
And yet we don't even understand how our own ecosystems function, how we exist, and our fish exist. Like, wow, what's going on here, world? And so I decided I wanted to go back to people I knew that were experienced in working in tropical ecosystems. And I wanted experienced people that worked in genetics and things that would help Bahrain cope with climate change. That was my, basically direction.
Right.
Because I worked on a lot of climate change projects and I was working with different entities on the Paris Agreement, what led to the Paris Agreement, you know? And that is when I realized Bahrain, as a small island developing state, we are still very far behind where we should be. And so I decided I wanted to do it here in Bahrain. And at that point, I had already built my network of people that I knew. I knew the field very well. And I also knew at the time, I was the only woman marine biologist that works on the field. And there needs to be more people here. And if I can help pave that way, I can only do it by proving to people that we can do it here. And so when I went, and I remember I chose my supervisor in England at Essex, and I said to her, this is what I want to do. And she's very supportive, Dr. Leanne Hepburn. And I said, this is what I need to do. I need it to be in Bahrain. And she said, that's fantastic, but we need reference sites because no one's done it before.
But
You need a reference site, Reem.
Yeah.
I said, okay, what are my options? So we explored the options. And then we thought, you know what? It would be great to have 2 reference sites. We're in the hottest sea in the world, Bahrain. We wanted something in the middle and something ideal.
Right.
So we chose, and because our network of marine biologists and organizations through them, we chose the Seychelles as a mid, and then Indonesia as our optimal site, if you like. Right. And so I would be based here. I would be based in the Seychelles for my expedition, and then in Indonesia, and then back in England in the lab.
Right.
And that's what happened and how I worked for the 4 years of doing my PhD, but obviously for the last year I had to be solely in the lab because I had a lot of lab work to do.
The data, you had to put the data together. Okay, so you finished what, in 2020?
Yes, in 2020.
And you came back.
I came back to Bahrain.
And what happened then?
And then I got a job, or got offered a job by Bahrain's Institute for Pearls and Gemstones, Danat, which is where I'm based at this moment in time as their research manager. A lot of people always say, oh, but what are you doing in Danat?
I was just going to say, what are you doing in Danat? Because usually we think about Danat as jewelry side of it. And
Exactly. Mainly because it started off in 2012, when I was working with Environment Arabia. Environment Arabia was subcontracted a project when Bahrain was nominating the pearl oyster beds to become a UNESCO World Heritage Site as part of the Pearling Path.
Yes.
And so I was the only local scientist who was part of this project, and the only Bahraini scientific diver on the project at the time. And so because of my knowledge about pearl oyster beds and my knowledge about coral reefs and ecosystems that support the functioning of the pearl oyster beds in Bahrain, they had brought me on board to help with the project. So initially it was meant to be just a project, but then it evolved and developed to being a research manager there, looking at ecological aspects.
Okay. Are you still working on the coral reefs, or?
So yes, I do that in my spare time. Yeah.
Okay.
So during the weekends, I do go out diving to ensure that I am surveying the sites. So I do a lot actually outside my main job, because I've always been taught by my parents that you have your duty in terms of your job and make sure that your job serves your community and your country. But at the same time, don't forget, you also have to serve your community outside your job.
Yeah.
So it's something you do as a way of living, but it's something you also have to do as, let's say, what Muhammad Ali used to say, the work I do for my people is the rent I pay for living on this planet.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And so what I have done in the last couple of years is I've built Bahrain's first environmental encyclopedia, which is called Be Nature. And I've called it Be Nature because I want everybody to interpret it the way they want. Be nature, as in you be nature, be natural, you know?
Yeah.
And in Arabic, it's ala tabi'a. So what does be nature mean to you?
Yeah.
What is your nature?
So what is that somewhere? Is it in the bookshops? Where is it?
It's an online platform where I
Okay.
have, so I launched that one in 2015. It's benature.info.
Okay.
And at the time, it had all the information I wanted to find when I was younger. What are our protected areas? What protected areas are there in Bahrain?
Yeah.
What are the laws and legislations connected to the environment? What if I want to go learn how to dive? What are the dive centers in Bahrain? If I want to recycle, where are the recycling points?
Yeah.
All of this is on Be Nature. And last year, I started a project to update it because obviously I launched it in 2015, so it's been 7 years, so it's really old now. And so the new one's going to be launched this year. So I'm very excited to share it with everyone in a couple of, hopefully, we're hoping in 12 weeks. It's going to be out, and I hope you will all join me during that launch.
I will be more than happy to.
That'll be so exciting. And I have things for everyone. Like, what if you want to pick strawberries in Bahrain, where to go?
Yeah.
What if you want to go to the botanical gardens? I've got the
Oh,
location.
so it has nothing to do only with the marine ecosystem. It has to do with nature.
It has to do with everything. There is a marine ecosystem. There's the terrestrial. There is a desert ecosystem.
Oh, wow.
There is everything you want to know. Do you want to know the situation of energy in Bahrain? It's there. Do you want to know waste management? It's there. Do you want to know how to apply for a dredging and reclamation permit? I've got the steps down for you because I can't find any of those steps anywhere. You have to physically call the entities to find out. And even then, it's not clear. There's no full written procedures that's emailed to you.
Yeah.
You know? And so this is something I have accumulated over 12 years now.
Yeah.
And this is basically my heart's work. For the last decade.
Okay, so tell me, are you doing this by yourself only, or you have a team?
No, it's by myself. I've been looking for volunteers. It's been a very difficult journey. I have a friend called Ali Talahi who has dedicated, he's an IT specialist.
Yeah.
And bless him, in his free time, he tries to help me with the website, and we sit there with WordPress.
Yeah.
I've been trying to reach out to more agencies that are more professional, that will help speed up things, because with the unofficial species list that I have, there are pictures that no one has ever seen. So if I wanted a particular species picture, well, we have people that say it's here, but there's no official picture. So I need people to illustrate this. So people, if you see it, then they email it to us, and we can put it that this species was seen in this time at this time.
Okay.
So as citizens, we are basically practicing or doing something called citizen science, where citizens are assisting scientists in collecting this data. And so this is what I've been doing, and I can't wait to launch it in a couple of weeks.
Wow, that's very interesting. Amazing.
Thank you.
Tell me something now before we finish. The sea, the diving and all that. First of all, see, I'm very interested because I'm scared of diving. I swim. I love it. Give me the swimming pool, and no matter what deep it is, it's okay. I go into the sea, and I have this fear of the unknown underneath. How do you do it?
This is completely normal. It is so normal to be afraid of going down. And believe it or not, breathing underwater is not natural for humans.
No,
you
yes,
know,
exactly.
We have developed a mechanism to do it, but it's not natural. So the fear is normal. And I had that fear. I was so afraid to an extent that, so I trained to dive underwater in South Africa.
Okay.
In Sodwana Bay. And the sea was so rough when I had to learn. And I remember I was so scared that when it was time to go out, I held on physically to the poor man, you know, and he was just like, it's okay. And I was like, no, it's not okay. It's just not okay. You know, and it's normal. It happens to so many people. Yeah. And then the thing is, amazingly, most dive instructors are so used to handling fear.
Yeah.
So used. Like all of them, all the dive masters, they're used to it. This is normal. I don't know anyone that has gone down without being nervous.
Yeah.
Okay?
All right.
But once you go down once, holding the hand of the person, you are fine. And you asked me the first time, how did you know?
Yeah.
On my first dive ever in South Africa, the day I was so scared, I was holding on to my instructor like crazy. And he was like, I promise you'll go down, you'll see the colors, you'll forget the world. And I said, okay, whatever, just hold on to me, and he held on and we went down and I saw the colors and I was like, okay, this is nice, but I was still nervous. And I remember it was completely light and suddenly it was dark. And I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And I looked up and I remember I saw something really dark and round and black. So I looked closer and realized it was an eye. And then the sun came halfway and I realized it was a whale. Oh. It was a humpback whale.
On your first dive?
On my first dive. If that was not destiny, I don't know what's destiny. And I don't know how to explain it to you, but my heart was suddenly so calm.
Oh.
And I was not afraid anymore. I don't know what it was. I just felt I was right where I needed to be. And it was wonderful. And the rest of the dive, I mean, they went by very quickly. It was a very short encounter.
Yeah.
And I remember the boat driver said, you're very lucky. In 5 years, I've been taking people out. We've never seen this.
That, yeah.
And...
but of course they were around you. I mean the guy who was diving with you
and they're
was
very
there.
docile. And usually they're more scared of us than we're of them. Like I've been down with sharks who are like, oh, human, go that way. And I'm like, no, I want a picture of you. Of course we let them go. Of course we're never in their way. But the fear doesn't go after the second or the third dive. It's always there. And when did I start being confident? It was the more I went down, the more I realized, actually, it's okay. Because my confidence came with my skills developing. Yeah. And then you're just free. And now when I'm not in the water for more than 4 weeks, I start being anxious. Yeah. So I know I have to go down to calm down.
Yeah. And how are the waters here in Bahrain? I was talking to another girl who's very passionate about diving and all that. And when I asked her, she said it's a little bit muddy and not clear as other places. So what do you think?
It depends where you go and in what area are you diving in.
Right.
So it's kind of like, if you go to a residential area, it's much different than going to a garden.
Yes.
So it's the same here. Of course, if we're going to areas that are very close to dredging and reclamation projects, then the benthic, substrate is going to be muddy. Yeah. It might be silty, not very nice to be around. But if we go to the coral reef area like Fasht al-Azam, Reef Bulthama, if we're in the Hairs, it's absolutely stunning. They're beautiful. Yeah. The waters are clean. And actually, most people always say, oh, there's nothing in Bahrain's water. There's nothing in Bahrain's water. And my argument to that is, well, you can go to a rainforest and appreciate it, but then you can't go to Antarctica and expect to see everything you saw in a rainforest. So we have to appreciate the ecosystems that we live in, and encounter. And so considering we are in the hottest sea on the planet, and the fact that we still have coral, we still have fish, we still have so many species,
That's a blessing by itself.
And we need to learn to be grateful and enjoy it. Yeah. It's about being able to find the joy, in what we see and experience.
Well, we'll end it with that.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you so much for coming in and telling us your story. I didn't expect it. I'm just sitting here and just listening to you, and I'm saying I haven't done anything in my life, and this girl is young and she's in front of me and she has so much already.
You're giving us a platform, so thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Thanks.